Good evening, students. Nice to have you back. Today we're going to have another lecture brief of a lecture that we have covered before. So the course of this lecture is the technology of service in restaurants and hotels. And I'm the lecturer, Alijan Sirtavic Paymukhanov. So the topic of this lecture is service quality concept evolution. And the lecture outline today is going to be a little bit different than it used to be during the actual lecture. So we're going to skip the overview part. Basically, we're not going to overview of the previous lectures. We're going to straightly talk about the lecture of the week 6, which again was service quality concept evolution. And at the end of the lecture, I'm going to give you the assignment. So let's start the lecture. First, let's talk about the concept, the definition. So service quality is basically a comparison between like perceived expectations of a service with perceived performance of a service. So basically it looks like an equation. So we have service quality, which is equals to perceived performance. So basically the execution of service and perceived expectations, basically the expectations of the service. As we all know, the expectations are those things that occur in the minds of our target customers or guests in the case of hospitality, and performance is basically the experience that they have during the service. And whenever like the performance meets the expectations, we say that the service was of a high quality and the service was good enough, and we met the customer. So the customer is kind of happy. If we manage to surpass the expectations, we can say that the customer is very happy, and most probably he or she is going to become our loyal customer and come and return to us. So we're not going to spend extra money to attract a new customer. And of course, he or she can act as a brand ambassador and invite his or her guests, so they will attract additional people. Here I'd like also to mention that one unhappy guest, means the guest that did not receive the service which was of his expectations. So basically the performance was poorer than the expectations. That guest most probably will take away about 10 potential guests. One happy guest can bring us up to 3 new guests. So we're going to save money on like marketing and the other things. So the service quality as the concept developed in the Nordic countries. That is why it was called like a Nordic school, service quality. And it had only 2 basic dimensions. The first dimension was the technical quality, and the second dimension was the functional quality. So technical quality was mostly about the core product. For example, in the case of restaurant, it is meal. In the case of bar, it is the cocktail. In the case of coffee shop, it is the coffee. And in the case of hotel, of course, it is accommodation, basically the bed. And functional quality is basically all about the qualities that were related to like service, like courtesy, attentiveness, promptness, and etc. Basically, technical quality measurement was very objective. So we can see and we can taste the product, and then we can say that it was high quality or not. But when it comes to the functional quality, it was very difficult to measure. But nowadays, we have another concept that emerged in 1985, and it is called service quality model, or ServQual, which also has the gap analysis, the gap model that kind of finds different gaps in between the dimensions of the service quality. Of course, the ServQual, I'm going to give an extra information that the serve qual itself kind of developed even further. So right now we have a bit less dimensions, and those dimensions are called RTER, rather. So the serve qual had 10 dimensions, like the classic ones that were introduced in 1985, and they are competence, courtesy, credibility, security, access, communication, knowing the customer, tangibles, reliability, and responsiveness. Tangibles basically refer to the tangible parts. In marketing, we call it like the physical evidence. So I would not like to focus on all of them separately. Yeah, you have seen that during the lecture, and most probably you will have some time to read them additionally. But we're not going to kind of spend more time on that because we're going to cover the current dimensions that are used in the modern service quality analysis and in the modern service quality. But here we have the explanations, yeah, of the service quality dimensions that were used in 1985. So basically that is how we can visualize it. So we have the service quality dimensions. Those dimensions have kind of two parts. Yeah, so we said that we have perceived expectations, so basically expected service, and perceived performance. Yeah, here we call it perceived service, and then we have like the quality. Perceived expectations design and like grow out of a word of mouth. That is what basically travels between the people. So basically what the people say about the service. Then we have personal needs and wants, of course, and the past experience of what he or she had faced before or after. We should also mention that, for example, after like experiencing a service, yeah, and if the service was of a high quality and that service basically exceeded the expectations, we should remember that that basic experience will go to the past experience, and the next time the guest comes or arrives, he or she is going to have even higher expectations, and so the meeting them is going to be even more like difficult. So nowadays, starting from 1990s, the serve qual model kind of developed even further. So nowadays, it has a shorter abbreviation. So some of those 10 dimensions were united. And so today we call it as a rather as an acronym, which stands for reliability, assurance, tangibles, empathy, and responsiveness. So reliability is about ability to perform the promised service, yeah, dependably and accurately. So basically this is about service that is going to repeat after time, and it is going to be consistent. And as we know, the service is kind of a very like difficult and very different type of a product, which is intangible, which is inconsistent, which is like which can't be stored, and etc. The next one is the assurance. So assurance means that the employees basically have enough ability, trust, and confidence. Yeah, so they can, so the guest, whenever he comes, he's going to feel and see that the employees are kind of professionals of their trade. Here we, for example, in the case of hotel, we can talk about grooming, yeah, basically appearing and looking and acting confident, so the guest will see that those employees are trustworthy, and etc. Tangibles, again, as we said, it is all about physical facilities, equipment, personnel, and communication materials. Basically, this is all about the physical evidence of the service. Empathy is the provision of catering, individualized attention to the customers, basically being able to feel what the customer feels. And of course, the last one is the responsiveness. So it refers to the willingness to help the customers and to provide prompt service. And of course, these dimensions, they do not occur separately and independently. They are interrelated. And as we said before, the service quality is kind of dependent between the service expectation and the service performance. And in between, we usually have a gap if there is a problem. For example, if we surpass it, that's great. We're going to have a loyal customer, but still next time we'll have to even perform a service in an even better way. But if there is a problem, we call that problem a gap. So we have a gap model. So we have 5 gaps, depending on the dimensions. So these gaps are here. We have serve qual, or rather model, and we have the gaps that occur in between them. For example, this gap is the second gap is about the gap which is about the standardizing, about the standard of the service. So basically, the service standard. Here we can say that we have expectations of the guest, and depending on the way we kind of define those expectations, we define the standards. Then we train our employees and then perform. And if there is a gap, we can say that there was a gap between the service that we have thought, and between the service that actually was delivered. So the knowledge gap is the difference between the target market's expected service, measures perceptions of the target market's expected service. So it is here. The second one is the standard gap. It's here, as I said before. The delivery gap is the difference between service quality specifications and the service actually delivered here. Then we have the communication gap, difference between the service delivery intentions and what communicated to the customer here. And the last one is the service quality gap, difference between experienced service and the expected service. So here. So basically that is how we define gaps and work with them. So rather model or method is based on the idea that customers rate the quality of a service provider by comparing their experience to their expectations. Gap analysis can then measure the gap between experience and expectations, and that is how we kind of work with the quality, and we improve the quality of our service. And that's basically what we were supposed to cover during this lecture. And now I would like you to give an assignment. So we're going to have 3 assignments for this lecture. The first one is to think about a service you have experienced recently. Then you write your expectations before and experiences after the service. So I'd like you to describe your overall satisfaction and service quality by using rather method. So thank you for listening to this lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.